Yes, let's talk about hockey, the show that journeys through the history of the sport of ice hockey from its disputed origins to the game we see today. After nearly a decade and a half of expansion, the NHL's size remained locked at 21 teams throughout the 1980s. But after the Wayne Gretzky trade to LA in 1988 grew hockey's popularity in that city, the league began to look at tapping into new markets during the 90s. In year 3 of the 90s expansion effort, another pair of teams made their debut. The second of these two also became the second franchise the NHL set up in the Sunshine State over 2 years, the Florida Panthers.
Named after the endangered panther species that lives in the Florida Everglade region, this new franchise was awarded to the owner of the blockbuster video company, Wayne Gretzky, on December 10, 1992. At a later press conference in April of 1993, the Panthers' team name was officially announced, along with the appointment of former Islanders GM Bill Torrey and former Flyers captain Bobby Clarke as team president and general manager respectively. Then, a couple months later, Roger Nilsson was brought on as the head coach. In the expansion draft, the Panthers lucked out by acquiring former Vezina Trophy winning goaltender John Vanbiesbrouck with their first pick, then added a bit more muscle by snatching up forwards Scott Mellanby and Brian Skrudlin. Additionally, they used their first-round pick in the entry draft to select Medicine Hat Tigers forward Rob Niedermayer. On October 6, 1993, the Panthers skated out for their first game, which ended in a 4-4 tie with the Blackhawks in Chicago. After a 5-3 loss to St. Louis the next night, Florida would pick up their first win in the third game of the season, and Vanbiesbrouck posted the club's first shutout in a 2-0 contest against Tampa Bay. With Vanbiesbrouck and his backup Mark Fitzpatrick anchoring the team in net, while Scott Mellanby and Jesse Belanger led the way offensively, and Gord Murphy and Brian Benning stood out among the blue liners, the Panthers would set 2 NHL records for a first-year expansion team with a 9-game point streak and 33 total wins for the year. Unfortunately, they still fell 1 win short of a playoff spot this time. In the shortened 94-95 season, Vanbiesbrouck would rank among the top 6 goaltenders in the league for shutouts and save percentage, as Florida once again fell 1 win shy of the playoffs. With the additions of rookie defenseman Ed Jovanovski and veteran winger Ray Shepard for the 95-96 season, as well as 50-plus point performances by defenseman Robert Svella and forwards Scott Mellanby and Rob Niedermayer, the Panthers finally made the playoffs with a 4th-place finish in the Eastern Conference.
Additionally, the Florida fans would start a new goal-scoring celebration tradition for their club that season. Prior to the home opener, Scott Mellanby killed a rat in the locker room with his stick, and then went on to score 2 goals during the game. Since he didn't get the hat trick that night, a teammate joked that he got a rat trick. And once this tale got out, fans began throwing plastic rats onto the ice following a Panthers goal. This was made even more interesting since 1996 was the year of the rat in the Chinese calendar. While it was only a few plastic rats being thrown at first, by the time the playoffs rolled around, over 2,000 plastic rats found their way to the ice.
In the first round against Boston, Florida fans had plenty of opportunities to throw rats in games 1 and 2, as the Panthers outscored the Bruins 12-5 to grab a 2-0 series lead. A lead they then extended to 3-0 after a 4-2 win in Boston. The Bruins would stave off elimination in Game 4, but back in Florida for Game 5, Bill Lindsay's late third-period goal would clinch the series for the Panthers as they beat Boston 4-3. In the second round against the top-ranked Flyers, Florida had just dropped 2 in a row to trail 2-1 in the series entering Game 4. However, after Dave Lowry scored 4 minutes into overtime of Game 4 to even up the series, the Panthers would win Game 5 in double overtime and then Game 6 by a score of 4-1 to upset the highly favored Flyers. With the top-ranked team in their conference out of the way, Florida next had to contend with the second-ranked Pittsburgh Penguins in Round 3. The two teams traded wins during the first 4 games before Pittsburgh put Florida on the brink with a 3-0 Game 5 victory. The Panthers held strong though, pulling off a 4-3 Game 6 win in their home rink to extend the series one more game. Then in Game 7 back in Pittsburgh, Tom Fitzgerald and Johan Garpenlov each netted a goal in the third period to give the Panthers a 3-1 win and the Eastern Conference Championship in their first ever playoff appearance. In the Cup Finals, Florida faced the Colorado Avalanche, another team in the finals for the first time. Colorado would outscore Florida 14-4 to win the first 3 games. But in Game 4, John Van Beesbroek put on arguably the best performance of his career, stopping 55 shots to keep the score tied at 0 after 2 overtime periods. Unfortunately though, the Avalanche were finally able to slip one past him 4 minutes and 31 seconds into the third overtime period to complete their sweep of the Panthers. After such a successful first run in the playoffs, Florida hit the ground running in the 96-97 season, going unbeaten in their first 12 games and putting together a 28-7 record by Christmas. Unfortunately, after Christmas, the club began to struggle as they went on 6 winless streaks of 4 games or more during the second half of the year. Fortunately, they were still able to again finish 4th in the East for a spot in the playoffs. The Panthers would shut out the Rangers 3-0 in Game 1 of their opening round playoff series. However, New York responded in kind with a 3-0 shutout of their own in Game 2, and behind the offensive power of Wayne Gretzky, Luc Robitaille, Mark Messier, and Esa Tikkanen, the Rangers also won the next 3 to bump off Florida in 5 games. The Panthers' performance continued in a downward spiral the next year as they posted a franchise-worst 24-43-15 record for a second-from-last finish in their conference. In the offseason, Van Beesbroek would sign with the Flyers, while the Florida net was instead filled by veterans Sean Burke and Kurt McLean. Even though the team's offense received a boost with the acquisition of all-star forward Pavel Bure midway through the year, the Panthers' 30-34-18 record still wasn't good enough for a playoff spot this season. In the 1999-2000 season, Bure set 2 franchise records with 58 goals and 94 points, while center Viktor Kozlov recorded a franchise record 53 assists. Then, the addition of former Conn Smythe Trophy winner Mike Vernon late in December helped give Florida more stability in net, as the Panthers were able to make it back into the playoffs with a then franchise best 98 points in the standings. Sadly, this playoff trip would be over quickly, as Florida was swept by the eventual Stanley Cup winners from New Jersey in the opening round. For his league-leading 58 goals, however, Bure took home the Rocket Richard Award, becoming the first Florida player to win an individual award. In the 2000-2001 season, Bure would surpass his goal mark from the previous year by scoring 59 to earn a second consecutive Rocket Richard Award. However, he was the only standout player for the club this year, as every other team member produced less than 40 points of offense. And even though the newly acquired second-year goaltender Roberto Luongo ranked in the league's top 10 for save percentage, the Panthers only managed to finish ranked 12th in their conference.
The club's slump continued into the 2001-2002 season despite acquiring Vitaliy Zavadskyy in order to team him up with his brother Pavel. And by the trade deadline, Pavel's continued struggles forced the Panthers to deal him to the Rangers for defensemen Igor Ulanov and Filip Novak, as well as a couple draft picks. Florida would finish second from last in the conference this season, and over the next 5 seasons, continued trade deal busts would play a big part in the Panthers ranking no higher than 11th in the East each year.
Behind goaltenders Thomas Vokoun and Craig Anderson, as well as the 60-plus points by Stefan Weiss and David Booth, Florida came within a single point of finally making it back into the playoffs in the 2008-2009 season. However, the following 2 years saw them fall back to the bottom of the Eastern Conference once again, extending their playoff drought to an NHL record 10 seasons. In June of 2011, former Hartford Whaler great Kevin Dineen was named as the team's newest head coach, and during the offseason the Panthers made several acquisitions to improve their roster, including Jose Theodore, Chris Versteeg, Brian Campbell, and the reacquisition of Ed Jovanovski. With Versteeg, Campbell, Weiss, and Thomas Fleischmann all topping 50 points for the year, Florida was able to put together several point streaks of 4 or more games to claim their club's first ever division title and end their playoff drought. In the playoffs, the Panthers carried a 3-2 lead heading into Game 6 of their opening round series against New Jersey. However, Florida would suffer 2 heartbreaking overtime losses in Games 6 and 7, bringing their playoff run to a screeching halt. Injuries would again plague the Panthers in the lockout-shortened 2012-2013 season, as they once again fell to dead last in the Eastern Conference. Though on the positive side of things, winger Jonathan Huberdeau became the first Panther to win the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year. Another losing season would follow in 2013-2014, prompting the club to fire Dineen partway through the year and replace him with Peter Horchek, who was then replaced himself after the season ended with former Blue Jackets coach Gerard Gallant. Having reacquired goaltender Roberto Luongo from Vancouver at the previous year's trade deadline, selecting Barrie Colts defenseman Aaron Ekblad first overall in the entry draft, and acquiring veteran star Jaromir Jagr, Florida was able to put together a winning record in the 2014-2015 season, with Ekblad earning the Rookie of the Year honors. But again, the club fell several points short of playoff contention. The 2015-2016 season would be a vast improvement, though, with Jagr leading the team with 66 points, 5 others breaking the 50-point mark, and Luongo ranking in the league's top 10 for saves, save percentage, and shutouts. The Panthers posted a franchise-best 47-26-9 record, which also included a franchise record 12-game winning streak to win the club's second division title. In the playoffs, though, they would ultimately suffer heartbreak once again in the opening round, as they were eliminated in 6 games by the Islanders, even though 5 of the games were decided by only a single goal, and 3 of those being decided in overtime. While they have been a club that enjoyed a good amount of success early on in their history, followed by years of hardships, the Panthers continue to look forward in hopes of becoming a contender once again.